Hey guys, how are you all doing today? So today is Friday. This is only the second video that I've done this week, but I did tell you that I wasn't going to do as many. So anyway, I hope you guys are doing good, and I just wanted to take a minute today, again, just with a thought. Now, I was planning on this week talking about some about history and how history plays into the Bible and to our faith and all of that, because you guys did mention that you wanted to talk about history at the beginning of the year when we were discussing things, topics that you guys wanted to learn more about. And I'm not going to go into a full like Bible study on that with a lot of different details and things, but just a couple of thoughts for you guys. First of all, history, you guys, is super important. Now, I know that some people are really, really bored with history, get bored with history. Some people find it fascinating, and a lot of people are somewhere in between that. But history is important. And honestly, right now, we are living through what is a historical event. I guarantee you that in the future, your history books are going to be talking about this. They're going to talk about the coronavirus pandemic that swept the world and caused all of this kind of chaos and all of these shutdowns and businesses and churches and just lockdowns across cities and countries and the lack of medical supplies and all of this stuff that we're living through right now. This is history. And when your younger brothers and sisters learn about this, or maybe later on in life when maybe your kids learn about this, you're going to be telling them about it, like, I lived through that and it was weird and it was strange and it was boring or it was scary or it was whatever it might be. And they're probably not going to really understand. I know that I was talking with my kids about 9/11, about September 11th, the terrorist attacks that took place here almost 20 years ago now. And that was before they were born. It was before most of you were born, if not all of you. And for my daughter, for Mallory, it's history. She learns about it in her history book, the same as the Civil War, the Revolutionary War, the Cold War, any of these things, and she just reads it on paper. But for my wife and I, we lived through it. We experienced it, and to this day, that was one of the scariest moments that I can remember in my life. But it's different when you experience history versus when you just kind of learn about it in a classroom setting. Now, what does that have to do with us and with God and with Christianity and all of that? So, what I was gonna talk about here was the fact that you guys, the Bible is full of historical events. It's full of historical people and places, and the Bible is a history book. Um, there is much in the Bible that hasn't been validated and confirmed by archaeology and extra historical accounts outside of the Bible, but there's a lot in it that has been. And to my knowledge, there hasn't ever been a an archaeological discovery, a historical account, anything like that that contradicts anything in the Bible. So while not everything has been absolutely 100% proven, um, none of it's ever been contradicted. Everything that's ever been discovered and found has proven what is in the Bible. And as we're approaching Easter coming up here next week, it kind of blows my mind, but there are still a ton of people around the world who don't believe that Jesus ever actually existed. You guys, Jesus was a real person. He lived, he died, he made a huge impact on the world in the short amount of time that he was alive. And just like we've talked about before in church and in youth group, it's often really, really easy to kind of gloss over the events of the Bible, kind of like we gloss over events that we read about in our history classes and our history books. Um, but these were real events. They happened with real people, and they were really impactful. So I want to really encourage you guys as we're approaching Palm Sunday here on Sunday and then Easter next weekend. And as we are currently living through what is a historical event, think about how you are feeling right now, the things that you're experiencing, and how that's going to translate years from now in the future when people learn about what's happening right now. When we learn about history, we tend to not think about it as anything more than just some old event. But I would challenge you guys to put yourself in the place of the people in the Bible. Put yourself in Jesus's place. Try to think what he was thinking. Think about the responsibility that he had on his shoulders. Think about the anxiety that he had. I mean, the Bible says that he didn't want to carry through with all of this. That he asked God if there was any other way. That he was under so much stress that he literally was sweating drops of blood. Think about his disciples who were terrified. The person that they were following had just been taken captive and been crucified, had been executed as an enemy of the state, and they were his closest companions. And they had the crosshairs on them now. I know it's very easy to cast blame on Peter for denying Christ, or for any of the other disciples for hiding. But put yourself in their shoes. Don't read it just as a story, something that happened, but think about it as if you were there and you were them. What if you were one of the bystanders, one of the people that on Palm Sunday were shouting praises to God, and then a few days later, the entire city was calling for his crucifixion? Where would you fall? Would you stand against society? Would you stand against everyone else? Or would you fall in line with what everyone else was doing? So you guys, as we talk about Easter here coming up and we talk about history, it's important that we learn the lessons from history. And that can be from the history of our world that we talk about, that you learn about in school. And it can be the history that is translated or reflected in the Bible. There is so much to learn, and we won't get everything if we just kind of gloss over it, skip through it, just try to get past it as if it is some boring old thing that we just have to learn certain facts from. That's true of history, that's true of kind of any subject, and that's true of the Bible and about God in general. God is deep, and you can take just a surface level kind of understanding of who he is, but you're never going to become the mature Christian like we were talking about last week until you dive deeper, until you see the truths behind the stories, until you put yourself in their place, till you really experience it for yourself. Because God was active back in biblical times, and he is just as active today. He was active when Jesus was being crucified, and he is active today as the world's on lockdown. So history, you guys, is important. God is important. And I just really want to challenge you now this week to learn the lessons that have been left for you in the past, and to make sure that you are leaving good lessons for the future. When this whole thing is written about later, in years to come, what are people going to say about Christians and their response to the world, to the sick, to governments, to all of this? What was the church's response? What was your response? It's something to think about, and it's something to influence the way that you act. So that's my challenge for you this week. Just leave a legacy that's worthwhile, and learn from the history and the lessons from the past. So I hope you guys have a good weekend, and I will see you all next week. Bye.